personalization is not the same as being personal. We have automated so many things in our businesses, our email, our outreach, marketing, all of these things. We implemented technology and automations to help us do that. And from a volume perspective, it works. From an authenticity perspective, it doesn't.
Welcome to the Friends with Benefits podcast, an Arcadia production. This is the show all about how to grow in business, lead with purpose, and live with intention. We're your co-hosting couple. I'm Jason.
And I'm Sam. Welcome to the show, friends.
Today's guest is pretty great. He's a good friend of ours. We've known him now for a couple of years. He's been to a couple of Arcadias. But it's interesting because, we're a relationship podcast.
True.
And he's building a relationship tool. He's using the power of AI to help us build better, stronger relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty stoked about it because at the end of the episode, he let us know where the inspiration for his company came from. And it came from our last event, which was inspired by our last podcast guest, Erica. So I think that's pretty fun.
Full circle
Moment there. It's Arcadia. But we've got Josh Katz with us today. He's from the partnership world, former VP of partnerships from a couple of great companies. Mm-hmm. Now started out on his own company, Knostra. You should check it out. Knostra.
In the show notes.
Yeah, in the show notes. I was just saying if I could spell it live with pressure. I think I did it.
I think you did it.
Nostra. But Josh, good friend.
Great friend. I also learned a little bit about barbecue. He's from St. Louis. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned.
I mean, a show about relationships and barbecue. I mean, well, I'm in. Sign me up.
Well, with that, I hope you enjoy the show with Josh. He's a great friend. Go follow him. And we'll see you next time, friends.
See y'all. Friends, family, we're back. We're doing it. We have another friend here. We actually do have a friend here today. I love when we can actually bring friends onto the show and friends who are no strangers to the show or to our lives. Sam, hello from upstairs.
Hi. Good to see you.
Josh Katz, hello from across the country. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello from St. Louis. Excited to be here, guys. Thanks for having me.
We haven't been to St. Louis in a while. I did like it that one time we were there. Sam had some really good margaritas.
Yeah. St. Louis is known for their margaritas.
We do have tequila and ice.
I love it. All right, so let's jump in. You're now somewhat in the business of relationships, if I may. We'll talk about that here in a second, but our big thing is that a lot of companies say they're relationship driven, right? But I think very few actually operate that way. Whether or not it's a nice thing to say to make people feel good about doing business with them or not, but let's start there. Let's start where most businesses kind of fail with getting relationships right, or maybe not fail, but where they get wrong about relationships.
Well, let's start with it's most times not their fault.
Who's they? The business or the person?
Businesses, yes.
Okay.
What we're seeing right now is that the problem is we don't have a system for relationships that help us to know when is the right time, equip us with the right context, and then in a perfect world, help us to actually do that outreach. And I don't mean on our behalf. There's certainly platforms where we can automate any number of actions and do outreach to a large number of people. But what I believe is that level of AI and outreach is accelerating so fast that what it will do is produce a reversion back to this, people talking to each other. And in order for that to produce outcomes, context, timing, intent all become really important. And our current systems are simply not set up to deliver that, certainly not at the right time, or in most cases to help you take those actions. And so what we're building at Knostra is essentially a context infrastructure layer for relationship-driven work. And the problem is that we, people, are the system right now. And that is not going to work. Our brains are not built to maintain 500 or 5,000 relationships at the same time. They simply are not. And so what we're trying to do is help people to expand their circles authentically while keeping people in the loop and using this wonderful new technology that we have to produce opportunities for them to reach out, provide them with the context of why this is important and what to say when they reach out, help them create that outreach, get their approval, and then act on their behalf. So we're just trying to amplify people's ability to leverage their intent and use the context that lives in our brains that even the best of us can't keep it all in. So that's what we're trying to do.
I'm curious, to go back to something you mentioned, is like we don't have the systems. So in the context of building relationships and maybe even the context of, business relationships or relationships in general, in kind of your research and building your company, have you kind of come across like what are some standardized systems? Like what does it take is what I'm asking to like actually build relationships? Like what are those things in order to get to the point where you can say like, yes, I've got a relationship with this person?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly some science around it and plenty of data that verifies and validates that when you have trust in a relationship, it produces outcomes. And so I won't go too deep into that, but when you ask about tools, the tools that we're using today, whether it's a CRM or email, calendar, AI assistants, et cetera, they work, but they're for storing information typically. And again, we, the human, is still that integration layer. We're the ones that have to correlate all the context from all those systems to know who should I be talking to today? What should I be doing? What should I be saying? Why is this important? And that's scattered across all of these systems that we have, which on their own are very viable, but they don't really help us to nurture and maintain relationships. And so by capturing context around all of your communications with people from those systems and supplementing it with conversations like this, where we learn about people, what's important to them, what are they looking forward to, what did we talk about last year, and use all of that as context in our future communications. It really is a huge level up.
I want to ask your opinion on this, Josh, because I feel like this has been something people have been trying to solve since the dawning of business. Business is done with relationships. And I think that we've all gotten personalization, quote unquote, outreaches that are like, I see you went to ASU. Me too. Let's do business together. So, how can we, in your opinion, like maintain these authentic relationships without getting over the top on personalization that doesn't land and it erodes trust?
The easiest way to explain it is just get rid of the isation. Personalization is not the same as being personal. And I think that is the difference that we're talking about here. We have automated so many things in our businesses, our email, our outreach, marketing, all of these things. And in many cases, it truly was a crutch. It was because we wanted to reach out to more people and we couldn't by ourselves. And so we implemented technology and automations to help us do that. And from a volume perspective, it works. From an authenticity perspective, it doesn't. And that's part of the thesis that we have at Knostra is like, this is going to get worse. AI is making it easier and easier to personalize our communications and our interactions. And so what will become the truly valuable thing is real personal interactions using context. And so, the most valuable work that we do isn't in our systems. It lives between those systems, between the CRM and the calendar and all of that stuff. And so again, there's a human element to all this. And that's where the follow through becomes tough, because we're trying to manage our personal lives, our professional lives, and all this stuff in our brain. And we lose the context and the timing and the continuity, the rhythm of it. And so that's what we're trying to do, is be that context and continuity layer that turns all these scattered signals into situational awareness and readiness for that next step, but always with the person in control.
I think that relationship part of it too is like, as far as like how you scale, right? The relationship factor. It's like, it's tough because if you think about it from a salesperson's perspective, right there, they have to balance, how to authentically build a relationship with, their their contact, but they've also got to balance, pipeline reporting and, high expectations of hitting numbers and stuff like that. So like, how do you suggest using a tool like yours, which we'll dive deeper into that here in a minute, to kind of make that balance more authentic, to use your words, when you're, managing a deal, plus also trying to, effectively build a relationship to build that trust?
Our answer is both. We're not a CRM replacement. We're not trying to be a CRM replacement. And there certainly is a need for that activity level reporting and, team aggregation of data for the purpose of an org. But we can superpower what you're doing in those systems by providing this contextual layer on top. So, a lot of people work out of a CRM or claim to. My experience when I talk to enterprises, adoption is very, very low. And even in their best days, people are still not putting in this personal and contextual information that is so important for developing relationships.
Yeah.
I think I'm really good at remembering things about people. I'm intentional about it. I try to do it because it's important to me. And the reason I created Knostra is because I know that my brain cannot do this as effectively as I would like. And I don't want to send out 6,000 emails today that have, some unpersonal message to people. I want to encourage people to leverage the trust that they're building with people and maintain those relationships and have more of them. I'm not telling them to drop their current tech stack. I'm trying to make it better.
Okay, so I have a question that's kind of maybe a doozy. I don't know. You and I talked about this a little bit, but I would consider all three of us on this call to be good relationship people. We care. We try to show up when we can. And yes, we definitely fall short, just like you've said. Like, it's hard to keep up with all of it. Sometimes, though, when we get put in these company situations and the only thing that the company cares about is revenue, pipeline, and the bottom line, which is fine. They should. It's a business. They're often asking us to call on your network and sell everything you can. And that can erode trust pretty quickly. So let's talk about that for a second. Like I think one of the things of Nostra that's really interesting, you just said it, is putting in all this personal context around these people. So for instance, Jason lives in Montana. He has 3 kids. His wife is Sam. Like, even furthermore, like his birthday is X, his social security, just kidding.
We give it away all here.
We'll see who's actually listening. But all this stuff that like is actually really relevant to having a personal conversation with Jason, but I don't necessarily want to share with my company because the relationship is between me and Jason, not company and Jason. So let's talk about that for a second. Like, how do we maintain trust with our company while not eroding it with our personal connections?
I'm smiling so big because I don't know if I've actually told you about this yet. And if not, you're just so on point. And if so, great prompt. We have 2 components of how we store information in Nostra. You have a personal vault, you have a corporate vault. And this exists for 2 reasons. One, as Jason stated, there's lots of activity-based information and reporting that is really important to get back into these corporate systems for any number of reasons, for marketing use cases, for managerial oversight, et cetera, et cetera. There's also information that Nostra will want out of the CRM. And so it's really important to have that integration that enables us to push and pull those information from Nostra to your CRM. At the same time, there's personal information that you may want to have that you may not want to put to a CRM. So for example, and this is not accurate, but if I were to share with you that I was a recovering alcoholic, you may want to store that in Nostra so that you don't send me a bottle of wine as a Christmas gift, or invite me to our investor meeting at a bar or something like that. But it's not necessarily information that you'd want to put into a CRM. And so we do have the ability to segment that personal knowledge, not the stuff that comes from the company or that is related to the transactions of the deals themselves, so that it can still be used for context and servicing the next best actions without crossing that line.
I do have another follow-up question on that.
Can I dig back in on something you said right before that?
Sure.
Because it was really pertinent. And he said, we're in these jobs and they say, just hammer your network. And you said, and that gets uncomfortable, or use a different word, but that was the gist of it. What occurred for me is, why is it uncomfortable? Because if you truly were maintaining those relationships, it may not be uncomfortable for you to then reach out to those partners for referrals or those people who can provide the introduction. And that's the whole point of this, is that we have that guilt that, oh man, I'm going to see this person tomorrow at a conference and I should have reached out a month ago, or I said I was going to do something. And even though I know that they'll still be my friend, I didn't do it. It hits you at a certain moment. And this layer that we're building is designed to prevent that thing exactly. And so if we do our job right, and we keep our relationship strong, maybe it wouldn't be uncomfortable for you to reach out to your referral partners when you get pressed by your manager.
Yeah, I think for me, it's I take my relationships really seriously, and I don't want to take advantage of them by overselling things that they may not need, or the timing's not right, or whatever. And I think when you look at somebody with a network, quote unquote, and your exec team is like, well, you haven't brought in any leads from said network or whatever, which probably isn't true. It's like, okay, well, I know that Sally's having a baby and now is not the right time. I know that so-and-so is thinking about leaving their job. Like whatever those types of things are. And sometimes the sale doesn't make sense, but from an executive perspective, it's like, well, why not? And so that's kind of part of the conversation.
You're talking about two concepts, timing and context.
Uh-huh.
So if you don't have both of those things, it's noise. Like timing without context is just noise. And context without timing, it's good intentions. So that's why it's so important to bring those things together. That information that you have, that context, that's everything. That's exactly why it wouldn't be appropriate for you to reach out at that exact moment to that person. And that's as valuable as anything else.
Okay, I want to ask you about partnerships specifically, because I think a lot of people, this might be a touchy subject for people, and everybody has varying opinions on this, but partnerships are a relationship business. When they start, it is person to person. Like Jason goes and builds a partnership, a relationship with his partner account manager at Knostra. And that relationship is then between Jason and Josh until it becomes further, until it becomes Knostra is a huge revenue driver for this company. The question being, how do we make sure that the relationships stay with the company when Jason leaves?
It's two things, not one. What does Jason keep when he leaves? And what does the company keep when he leaves? Because both are important. And so, yeah, the company needs to have access to the interactions, the cadence, the timing, potentially some of the content and touch points, all of the stuff that you would typically track for purposes of metrics. But that personal context that Jason and I have developed in real life and also in this hypothetical, a lot of that, as I said before, that's Jason's. That's his relationship with me. We're creating this so Jason, and for the benefit of the company he works at, can form stronger relationships by generating trust that will ultimately produce the outcomes that he's looking for and his company is looking for. There's personal and corporate outcomes. And Jason and my relationship, both in real life and in this hypothetical, are not going to be based on just closing a deal. Like, if that's what we're talking about, we're having the wrong conversation. And that's why I'm not focusing on, necessarily people who sell widgets or people who work at companies that are product led. We're literally it's a transaction as opposed to a relationship. And so we've decided to focus into industries where it's typically a longer sales cycle. The sale is very much trust-based. Credibility is extremely important. And those deals typically, like you said, take longer. They involve more stakeholders, and context and timing becomes even more important.
In the context of relationships, if I'm doing my job, right, and if we think about it in the context of friendships, if I'm doing my job, then I'm introducing my team to you and your team, and they're beginning to work together. They're beginning to kind of build their own relationship, establishing their own trust. They're putting the necessary time in, which is an important factor into any relationship. Like, what kind of time can you give to it? And if I'm doing that side of my job, then like, yeah, I'm helping expand those relationships so that it doesn't sit inside of, just my head, my Nostra, my world, etc. Like, it allows someone else to actually benefit by, what you said in the very beginning is like helping make their circles bigger.
Yeah, it's less, overload on your brain and more consistent follow up. And it really amplifies because that person that you're feeling nervous about reaching out to because too much time has passed, or maybe you didn't follow through on a commitment or something like that. Guess what? When you do it, you're not just opening one door, you're opening two, because guess what? They're probably feeling the same way. And they may have wanted to reach out to you for something meaningful, or to offer you a referral, or to ask for one. And that door seemed closed. And so the more doors that we open in this way, it really starts to accelerate.
Exactly. Okay. So Nostra, you mentioned a few times coming to your building. Talk to us about like what Nostra is, but in the context of like how you would tell a friend, not in startup terms.
Simple talk. I would be at a conference or a bar or a Christmas party or dinner or whatever and meet somebody interesting like Jason Yarbrough. And we'd have a great conversation, and he would tell me about his wife, Sam, and his kids and what he's passionate about. And he'd say, yeah, I want to talk to you about the thing that you're asking about. But I've got a lot going on with closing out the year. Can we talk in January? And I'd say, yes, it was so great to chat with you. And I would leave. I'd pull out my phone. I'd hit the side button and start talking. I'd say, hey, Nostra, create a contact for Jason Yarbrough. I'd drop it, just do a brain dump, just like I just did. I'd say, remind me in 2 weeks. Jason mentioned his team's hiring. I offered an intro to another person that I know. Boom, done. That note goes off into the ether. But there was 10, 15 pieces of information that were in it. 2 weeks later, when I wake up, instead of opening up my CRM, I'll see a nice little red notification from Nostra, and it'll say morning briefing. I'll say, hey, Josh, I've got 5 things to cover with you this morning. I need your decisions on. Are you ready? I'll say, yeah. And we'll be having a voice conversation, or you can do it by chat. And it'll say, you had a great chat with Jason on the 19th of December. You need to follow up with him today. Nostra would create that content, whether it was a text or an email, based on how we communicate, with the context from all that information that I put in there in a draft that sounds like how I write. And I would have a decision to either send it, edit it. Maybe the email didn't mention his beautiful wife, Sam. And I'd say, hey, make sure you say hi to Sam for me as well. I would rewrite it. Then I send it. And so the idea is that it identifies opportunities. It surfaces them at the right time. It prepares the outreach. It gets my approval, and then it takes action. So one tap, I approve, and guess what? Relationship stays warm.
Very cool. What does Nostra mean? Where'd that name come from?
At its root, because I'm real into Latin, because I know 3 Latin words.
Oh, you're proficient.
It means ours. But for me, it really has more of making people feel known and seen. Like, what do you know about people? And there's certainly the Nostradamus component of it as well, because it is predictive. And so all of that, our relationships, predicting the right time and the right messaging, and showing people that you know who they are. That's really what it means to me.
Okay, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about the unspoken side of this a little bit. You're building a business, and there's a lot that goes into that. So let's talk about the moment that started. Like, I know that there were a few job changes and whatnot. But this was like a conscious decision for you to go all in on this and build. What were the factors to help you make that decision? Like why now? Why this versus just going back and getting another job?
There was kind of a 2 or 3 different elements that really catalyzed this. So one, this is what I'm passionate about. I love showing up for people. I love making them feel like I remember them and what we talk about and who they are, and thinking of creative ways to help them. And that's just what I love to do. And I feel very grateful that I get to do that in business as a partnership professional.
Mm-hmm.
Doing that at a larger level is something that I've tried to fold into my previous roles, and it's been effective, but I simply lacked a system to do it effectively.
Mm-hmm.
So when I left my last role, there were a few things that were top of mind for me. One, I've worked in AI and in some larger tech companies and formed partnerships with all kinds of different companies, and most recently for a CRM focused into mortgage and banking. And so there was a huge gap there. And I realized that the systems that we have today, I believe, are moving in the wrong direction. I think they're moving more toward AI acceleration, automations, really removing the human element. And so when I sat down to think about what that meant, honestly, it meant that I was going to be stronger. It meant that the relationships that I have, I look at that as a competitive advantage. If everyone else is going to rely on automation, I still have access to the same technology as they do. And so that was where the idea started, is how can I use this powerful technology that we didn't have access to 18 to 24 months ago to prepare people for when human relationships and communication will be the differentiator. I believe it already is today, but I believe this will become so much more obvious and evident and inevitable, that technology like Knostra will not just be something you put on top of your CRM. It will be your layer that you use to interact with all of your technology. It will be the way you teach technology, who you are, how you write, how you talk, what's important to you, and how you want to relate to people. And so I can't think of a bigger mission than that. And the timing of it with my partner, Tony, worked out perfectly. He's somebody who I implicitly trust. Our relationship grew organically over the years. We've worked together for the past few years, and our mission is very, very aligned on this, that it's not just touchy-feely. We want people to have strong relationships, kind of like what you said. Everyone thinks they're a relationship person. But there's a big difference between being liked and being trusted. And that's where business outcomes come from, is that trust. Likability can get you in a door, but trust is what will get that contract signed. And so Tony's been really helpful. As you guys know, I've got a lot of ideas and sometimes need someone to rein me in. And so Tony and I have just been working together really well on that. And that's where it started for me, was wanting to take what I think I do well, do it better, and then share it with others.
I know you're early, but like up to this point, like what's been the hardest thing about getting this company off the ground?
Education, probably educating people on what this is. We've all become so accustomed to legacy tech that we want to put it into one of those boxes. Is it a CRM? Is it sales enablement? Is it, a PRM for keeping track of your personal relationships? And it's really none of those things and all of those things. And I just, I think that that's been a challenge. Everyone likes the idea, but ultimately for us, it will come down to how do we show that this produces meaningful results for people.
As you're building a relationship, sort of product, do you find yourself like studying the psychology of relationships more, or do you find yourself more studying like running a business more?
I think it was Will Taylor who said this best when he was talking about working in the business versus working on the business. And you have to do both. And so, yes, there's this concept that I've been trying to really go pretty deep into, and I think it's called Dunbar's circles, but it talks about the science behind the number of relationships that we can maintain simultaneously. And I think that that really is the clearest explanation of the problem that we're trying to solve. And I just don't think that this problem was really solvable 2 years ago. And so I do think we're early. And, we're going to focus this into mortgage and real estate initially. And that's where we believe we have an enormous amount of trust built up already. There's high repetition of deals. There's huge databases of past clients. And so relationship moments actually move revenue. And then we will expand out from there to, partnerships and sales professionals more generally, other industries like insurance and coaching and PE and VC and legal and all of that, because these are all places where trust and relationships really drive outcomes, and those outcomes are meaningful.
You just said something that I think is true and changing every day about how this problem wasn't solvable 2 years ago. I want to hear your perspective on the capabilities available to building a business right now. Like, I've known you for 2 years, and I'm going to make an assumptive statement, but you're not a coder. I think ideas have so much more momentum now and possibility behind them just due to the technology. So talk about that and kind of how you've leveraged the moment that we're in for your ability to build.
I can only imagine how much it would have cost and how hard it would have been to build what we're building now 3 to 5 years ago. And I worked for an AI company 3 to 5 years ago. And so I actually do know how hard some of this was to build at that time. And you're correct. I'm not a builder. I know just enough of these fancy tech words to be dangerous and make a developer that I'm working with a little bit nervous that I may have pushed the envelope a bit too far.
You broke something.
That's right. But yes, we have a very tech forward stack. I mean, even the CRM that we're using is a newer one that actually has been really great for us. When people compare us to a CRM, I'm like, we're not organizing contacts. We're operationalizing context or meaning.
How do you action that content or those contacts?
Modern tech stack. We're definitely using some vibe coding to get some of these ideas to a point where we can discuss them, visualize them, and then potentially operationalize them. There's been some really large learnings on my side of what falls under a technical leader and what just falls under the general bucket of a founder of things that need to get done because you just started a company. And so I've been learning new software just because I have to, and I need to be able to track feedback from users and understand how our LLMs are interacting with the requests that are coming into the system and stuff like that. And so, yes, today you can run mean and lean and have, the same power that would have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars even 3 or 4 years ago.
When you're talking to folks now, right now, I imagine you talk to a lot of people, and if you're talking about getting started with AI, like what's the context in which you're talking to people about how to get started using AI, and like how can that really impact the level of business that they're doing, right? Clearly you saw it and you're like, I can build a business off this. Like, we had a session within Arcadia that you were a part of, like how to build AI to further, progress your life and job. Like, what does that conversation look like from you for someone who's now building an AI company?
Well, I would say it's two things. One, do it. That's the most important thing. Mm-hmm. Like, just try something. Okay. We don't know which of these models is going to be the best. We don't know which company is going to win this arms race, and it doesn't matter. All of these models will become commoditized and democratized in generally in the next few years. It's what you will do with them and how you will focus that power that will create a lot of great companies. So the first piece of advice I give people is practice interacting with AI. And I do believe that voice will be the predominant way we interact with AI. And so try something like Whisper. Whisper Flow is maybe the best AI tool that I've used this year.
Sam got me hooked on it.
Yeah, Josh. And I think This is not a sponsored post, but I think Josh and I are their biggest fans.
You'll just work 4 or 5 times faster doing the exact same things you're already doing. And it takes 1 minute to install Whisper. And so it's things like that where you're practicing talking and not talking like you're talking to a robot. Just stream of consciousness, flow it out there. Let the AI show you how it's interpreting what you're saying. And you can tune it just by responding back to it if it is or isn't what you were hoping. So do it, get started with something, start interacting with AI. And then if you're working on a team or in a company, maybe the lowest hanging fruit is to ask each department leader, how are they using AI today? And do they have any ideas of how they could use it in their department in the future? And have them come to a meeting and just talk about it. People are probably using tools within your org that could be helpful if you knew about them. There's probably ways to deploy AI against the tools that you're already using where it isn't native within those tools. And so at my last company, I created a matrix. It had each department, and then the columns were general AI use, specific use cases using our specific tech stack. And then I think I did one for when we're in person, like conferences and stuff like that. And nice. It was just a really great way to aggregate across 4 or 5 people what we're doing, what we could do. And it was a really good conversation starter.
Love it.
I think just 2 call outs on that. I think it can be overwhelming for people. Like there's varying degrees of comfortability with AI. I mean, I feel like most people in tech are in GPT of some sort every day for a myriad of things, but like pushing beyond that, I think can be intimidating for some people. But just 2 points of context that I thought were really interesting from the constellation. One person is interviewing for jobs right now, and a lot of the companies have asked him, what have you built with AI? Not like, how are you using AI, but what have you built with it? And I thought that was a really, like, I don't know, 6 months ago, that wasn't asked on interviews, you know? So like the world is changing fast. And I think just figuring that out by exploring, and I think you need to remove the barrier of I'm building a company to I am just learning is a helpful piece of context. And then secondly, another member was talking about how their team actually has initiatives for AI experiments for every member of their team. And those initiatives may or may not prove to be something fruitful for the business, but it is more of like a continuing education, employee development, but also that benefits the company because I'm sure that the learnings they are receiving are like tenfold.
I can't imagine an interview that wouldn't ask, are you using AI? How did you use it to prepare for this interview? I mean, like I don't even care what the answer is. It's a huge signal. If you,
right. Answer's always got to be yes.
This is actually a robot talking. I am AI.
Yeah, we're actually all. This is not even us anymore. This is Notebook LLM talking. So like,
that's right.
You know, just kidding.
I do think just Notebook LM is a really great place to start if you're nervous because you can keep everything contained. You can drop in your website or a couple of assets and just start talking to it. And so it seems to me that that's a pretty safe place if you were nervous to start.
I haven't tried that one.
Very cool. All right, let's go back to the business owner thing, but hear more about you, Josh, and things I think that drive you. Like, what would you say is the hardest tension that you might navigate between being a driven new business owner and being the dad that you want to be for your kids?
I don't know if I can solve for that because I'm driving in 2 completely different directions. You know, I want to be home with my kids, they're 4 and 5, and see every one of these moments. And even if I were just working a normal job, that time's fairly limited for me. You know, I get the morning and when I get home from work before they go to bed. And so I don't want to give that up. And so for me, the answer has been to sleep less. And so I've picked up over an hour and a half, but almost an hour, 45 minutes a day just by sleeping less in the last 3 or 4 months. So sleep less. That's one way to solve for this.
Getting up earlier and working, or going to bed later and working, or
yes, both.
Okay.
Do not try this at home for professionals only.
And then there's this other driving force of what do I want to show them? Who do I want them to see me be? And I can't really think of a bigger mission than doing what I'm doing right now. I'm all in. I believe in what we're building. I'm not going to quit. And I know it's going to be hard. And so, in order for me to make that true and be present for my family, it's very tough. But I'm going to do both. They're both important.
The next question that's coming, because we talk about it a lot, is like how, and in that new time that you're getting, how are you finding time to take care for yourself or take care of yourself?
There's one thing that I heard the other day, and I literally remind myself of this 5 times a day. I am and should feel blessed to be stressed and anxious and nervous about all of these things that are happening, because they are the exact things that I manifested and wanted to occur and worked my ass off to occur for very many years. And so we consistently are our own largest critics. And I believe it's in many cases because we just keep moving our own goalposts. Sometimes we work really hard to achieve something, and then we get there and we're still just looking at what's next. And we don't stop for 5 minutes or 15 minutes to realize this was hard and this is valuable. And I should feel blessed to be here dealing with this. I just feel blessed that I get to do this. And I know it's hard. And so I just keep reminding myself that you get to do this. So,
Do you have any rituals around that, or is it truly just like keeping it top of mind?
I do. I've got a couple of things written down that I look at every day. And one of them is my entrepreneur hat, which my sister told me this, my sister, Rachel Saunders.
Hey, Rachel.
Be relentlessly resourceful.
Mm-hmm.
And so no one's coming to save me. No one's coming to save either of you guys either, just so you know. And so we have got to solve these problems. We got to keep in motion. We got to leave our baggage behind. And so I'm trying to be relentlessly resourceful. And the other one is what I just described before, is just reminding myself when I get stressed or things get hard, like, this is exactly what I asked for. And I don't really want to go work for another company. I want to build this, and I want it to be meaningful for others as well.
Love that. I have to tell a quick story about Josh really quick because it stuck with me. But this summer, before the Arcadia Leadership Experience, a few people came out and had an Airbnb the night before. Josh is an avid fly fisherman, so we were all planning to like where they should go fly fishing and whatnot. Jason and I stopped by with the kids, and Josh was gone, like missing. And we were like, where is Josh? Well, it turns out, for like no joke, 45 minutes, he was inside playing with our son, Jack, like on the floor, learning a new board game, like heads down playing, instead of being with all the people that he came to visit across the country. And I just thought that was the coolest because it shows your ability to play. You were just like so invested in making him feel seen and special, and it was really awesome.
No, he crushed me. It was very hard for me.
Yeah, well, I'd expect nothing less. He loves a board game. Okay, on a more personal note, I'm curious if you have any specific relationships in your life that have shaped you as you have become a leader and a builder, and kind of who you're stepping into today.
First one is my dad. I learned that things aren't easy. You got to show up anyway, and one foot in front of the other. The hard work is what's going to pay off. A second would be a previous boss of mine, David Karandish. I've seen him do things that I think thought were impossible, and I've seen him plan years ahead. And so now I can see how meaningful that can be, as opposed to just block and tackling and figuring out how to make some money. You really have to figure out what people don't know that they need. And so that would be a lesson I learned there. Another one is one of my mentors, Stephen Beer. And I've had a relationship with him since I was a first-year attorney in New York, and he was a big-time partner, and he's been a mentor of mine for decades now. And I wrote about it on LinkedIn the other day about how he was one of those people who I really wanted to reach out to when the time was right. And, you know, we always have that story we tell ourselves when the time is right. The time's never going to be right. And guess what? we talked the next morning, and it was just like we had spoken the last week. So it's people who he's one of the people who taught me that even in complex business, that you can be kind and you can, look out for people. And I think that served me quite a bit.
Love it. Now you're building a business off of it. So as we bring this home, tell us where can we get our hands on Knostra?
Well, only a couple of dozen people have been able to accomplish that feat to date. We are rolling this out in small groups to our beta users. If you go to Knostra.ai, Knostra.ai, you can join our wait list. And when you do, let me know what you're dealing with from a relationship perspective. What's not working for you? I will respond to you. I respond to every one of those emails. It's important to me. This is research for us, and we will be opening up the platform to the public in January.
We can find you all over LinkedIn. Anywhere else you want to be found, Mr. Katz?
Call me, text me, page me, whatever
Pappies.
you need. If you want to talk about Knostra, we can do that.
Go to his house for barbecue.
Yeah, want to talk about barbecue, we can do that. And honestly, I'd love to hear from anybody. So let me know if I can be helpful, and come check us out. Join our wait list. We really appreciate it.
Love it. And hopefully find Josh back at Arcadia Leadership Experience again this summer.
You have my word.
Love it.
Josh, we're so grateful for you, for your friendship,
100%.
for what you're doing in the world. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Guys, if I could add one more thing, I appreciate you both immensely. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say that there was one moment at the last ALX that really was part of the spark for this. It was one of the wonderful speakers that you brought in, and we all started talking about these cards of how we could remember to reach out to people. And when I left, that really was the first thing that I did. Was I went into Lovable, and it was my first project in using AI to build something. And I built, at that time, it was called RIS, a relationship investment system, based on what we talked about.
I'm glad you changed the name.
And that was kind of the baby, the seed that has now become Knostra. So thank you.
Amazing.
And I look forward to pushing this out to our crew and to the larger community as well.
That's super fun, because I think that is maybe the episode before or two before this one where we had Erica Flowers on the show too. And
She was
she's the
amazing.
one
Talking just about that system.
Yeah. So glad to hear it.
Perfect follow-up.
Thanks, Erica.
Yeah. All right, friends. Thank you so much. Go follow Josh. Go be kind. Go build great relationships in the world. And we'll talk to you next
Make
time.
your circles bigger.
Thank
See
you,
y'all.
guys. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you both.
Thank you, Josh. See y'all.